What's up, buddy? I'm making a video about my R6. You like it? What do you have on your neck there? What's going on, guys? Chris here. Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, I make YouTube videos about camera gear and everything photo and video related, so definitely consider subscribing. In today's video, we're going to talk about my final review of the Canon R6. After 4 months of client videos, YouTube videos, photo shoots, everything you could possibly do with this camera. Now, I did make a full review on the Canon R6, so definitely check it out. The link will be just below the like button. So let's get right into this. The Canon R6. Now, I've done, like I said, client videos and YouTube videos of sorts, so I'll be showing that footage as I talk about the camera. Now, what I noticed most about the camera was the image quality, because I came from the Canon EOS R, and the EOS R, although it had very good quality 1080p, it just couldn't match the 4K image, just because, you know, 1080p is not 4K, and as soon as you watched it on a slightly larger screen, you saw all the imperfections. Now wait just a second, this is the first time I make a video and it's actually like sunny outside. If you want to see, wait, look, it's a beautiful day in Paris. So yeah, the first thing I did notice was the image quality. The 4K out of this camera is just really sharp, and I'm glad I've checked that box, because as I was making videos with the EOS R, it was always something I was worried about. And when I heard that this was a 5K sensor, I knew the 4K was going to be crisp based on my research and looking at prior cameras that had a oversampled sensor. Now yes, this also does come at a drawback, which is the overheating, and I have personally never overheated the camera in these 4 months, and I've done plenty client shoots, but I do admit there are times where I get worried because I see the timer go down to about 5 minutes or so. I do turn it off to kind of cool the camera back down, but it is something that is on my mind as I shoot. But if I'm making a YouTube video, I'm never worried about it. I can record 15-20 minutes straight in 4K and there's no problem there. It's just when I start shooting back-to-back clips, more so also in 4K 60. Now that leads to the next thing I really like about this camera, and that is the 4K 60. The 4K 60 that comes out of this camera is to die for. It's just super smooth, super buttery, and I didn't see any reduction in quality when I went from 4K 24 to 4K 60, so I can easily match the clips. And sometimes what I would do is, if I'm making a video where I'm just jumping back and forth from slow motion to real-time video, what I would do is just keep it in 4K 60 and then slow it down when I need it. And that was just an amazing experience. So yeah, image aside, another thing I really like about this camera is the overall body. I like the ergonomics, the form factor of this camera. It is very similar to the R, but it does feel a little bit chunkier, so to speak, and that makes it feel way more comfortable in your hand. And especially because I've held some Sonys in my hand, and I do like the Sony body look, but I do not really like how it feels in the hand. Edges are a little bit sharper and it just feels a little bit smaller. But the R5 and the R6 and pretty much the R just feel super rounded out and designed to be held for like a long period of time. Now obviously I've memorized all the dials, I know where all the buttons are, and I've become super fast with it because it was really similar to the Canon EOS R. The only thing I had to adapt to was using the scroll dial at the top, which I prefer, as well as the scroll wheel on the camera, which I really like. Another thing I really like, but at the same time gets me very frustrated, is the IBIS. Now that's probably the one thing that is kind of controversial with this camera. The overheating issue kind of just wasn't that big of a deal. So yes, the IBIS is probably the most serious problem with this camera. And after these past 4 months, I have to say, I don't mind. For my last client shoots, I actually used the IBIS on, and I was very nervous because I was aware of the rumors, and I had already tested myself that the IBIS can be very unreliable when it comes to the wobble when you're shooting at a wider angle. But what I found was, and what my workaround was, is that the IBIS isn't really good when you have a lot of side-to-side motion like this. For example, when you're vlogging. So if I take the camera like this on my GorillaPod and I shake it side to side, or I'm turning like this, then the IBIS kind of ruins the video. But when you have a moving in shot like this, the IBIS doesn't seem to have much of an issue. And I'll show you sample clips right now of me using the IBIS on a client shoot, handheld. Worked super well, as even ultra wide. Now obviously there is a little bit of wobble, but that's pretty much the same thing as having a little bit of shake. And if you add a little bit of stabilization in post, it looks perfect. So the IBIS is really strong, but you just kind of have to learn how to use it. And that's what I've done. For me, the IBIS is a pro because I found a way to use it well. Or I don't know if that's how Canon intended for it to be used, but that's just how I learned to use it without having to worry too much about wobble. I just have to show you on another camera because I want you guys to completely understand what I'm talking about. Canon 800D with the kit lens. So what I mean is, as you're moving with the camera, you want to avoid this motion as much as you can. And that's actually a prominent motion as you're vlogging because you hold the vlog camera like this and you have naturally motions that are side to side like that. But if you're able to hold the camera well and move straight without this motion, then the footage is really stable. What is that, the x-axis? Yeah, so the x-axis is the more sensitive axis to wobble. At least that's what I found out. As I take this camera out, can you guys leave a comment down below just telling me what B camera I should get? Because I want a B camera to replace this one that can take pictures and that can shoot 4K just for when I have to shoot B-roll of my R6 or if I'm trying to make a YouTube video with multiple angles. It's just, this camera doesn't really match the quality of my R6, especially because it's not full frame, it's not 4K. The pictures are great, but something that's 4K, it doesn't really have to be full frame, but just a good B camera, not too big, preferably using the same Canon glass. If not, it's fine. And preferably like not too expensive. So leave a comment down below what you think. Now, one domain I really like this camera as is just as a YouTube camera, as I'm using right now. The autofocus is really fast. It's very reliable. Actually, back on the autofocus, I used it on this dance video with a client and the autofocus is just amazing. It kept on the eye. It saved me from having to manually focus because my talent was moving back and forth very quickly from the camera and the autofocus saved my life. So the Canon R6 autofocus is extremely reliable. Whether I move back or closer, it'll keep me in focus and I don't really have to worry about it at all. And I don't really have to look off to the screen very often. As a YouTube camera, it is pretty good, and especially once you have a computer that can edit the file. Because as I mentioned in my last video, I had an older MacBook Pro and editing the H.265 videos on the older MacBook Pro was very difficult because the computer just couldn't decode it. But the new M1 Max can, and it is a breeze. So having this camera as a YouTube camera is great because I can pump out content more regularly without having to worry about transcoding or anything that takes up more time. Not to mention the fact that it's also a very good stills camera. If I ever need a good quality thumbnail or picture for social media, I have no problem shooting with this full frame 20 megapixel camera. Now I do say there is one thing that I kind of noticed is the colors. The colors on this camera are a little bit different than the USR, and I think the USR had slightly better colors. Now it depends on the quality of light that you shoot with. When I shoot with daylight like this, I don't really have a problem, but when I use cheaper lights like this light in the back, it makes my skin a little green. Now this was not an issue when I shot with the EOS R, so I'm wondering why it's an issue with this camera. Actually, my last video when I shot with both that light and this light, I had to change the color matrix of the camera to a more magenta just to balance out the greens that it put in my skin, and it was just really annoying to have to do that. So this camera has a little bit more complex color science. I always keep it in daylight white balance just to avoid as much shift as possible, but that's definitely something you need to research or look into if you consider getting this camera. And about that, if you ever want any of the camera gear I'm using, all the links will be in the description. They're affiliate links, so I do get a commission, but if it's something you're into, then hey, it'll help me out. Now, in general, this camera just has a lot of little things that I really like the dual card slots. I have it programmed so that it puts my videos on one card and my photos on the other, so I don't have to worry about searching through files and cards, which one has which. I have two cards at the end, one full with video, one full with photos, and that's just really cool. I'm actually losing daylight. Wait, I'll just have the light bounce against the wall in front of me because I don't want any strong lights. I want to make this look more natural. And there's a big pole here. Final thing I'm going to talk about, and it's just the overall reliability. I find this camera to be even more reliable than my EOS R. Now I know it may sound weird. This camera has never glitched or frozen on me once, and nothing is scarier on a shoot than a frozen camera. I didn't have a lot of problems with the Canon EOS R, but there were times I would turn it on and the sensor would just not activate very quickly. It may take a few extra seconds than usual. And that was always something that was a little scary because I was on a shoot and it was my only camera, and I turned it on and then just nothing happened for like 5-10 seconds. I don't know if it was the fact that it was cold. I don't even want to talk about the Sony I had before, the Sony a7S II. I know the Sony a7S III is way better, but when I had that camera, so many menu glitches, freezes, some it would just never turn on, the sensor would go all white. So yeah, this camera just feels very reliable. And the new skin I have on it looks sick. So if you guys wanna pimp out your camera, then check out the video right there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really have much. Oh, we have a visitor. What's up, buddy? Oh, you need to scratch yourself? What's up, buddy? I'm making a video about my R6. You like it? What do you have on your neck there? Let me do my outro, dude. Alright, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video was informative to you, whether you want to purchase the camera or not. If it was, then consider giving it a like, as that helps me out, as well as hitting that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.